Hey to all you Matthew studying peeps. Week 76, Matthew 20, 1 through 16, laborers in the vineyard. I mean, what is it about grapes and vineyards? When you see a grape, vineyard, it's all organized and straight and it's pretty. And then grapes, when they're hanging there, they're just so luscious. And you like movies about grape vineyard areas? Like, what about Under the Tuscan Sun? It's like a romantic movie. I don't know, I just love it. I'm drawn to that. And the architecture for the homes in that area seem to fit. There's something about them, the walls of the houses that are, I don't know how to explain it, but and then there's another Tuscany movie I like. I don't know. That area just is so romantic, and I don't know, grapes are just so beautiful, and you just want to, who doesn't like grapes? I don't know what it is about them, but I love them. And so, of course, and in that day, wine was a big deal, so today we're going to talk about the parable of the laborers and the wages. And this parable is a response to Peter, which, what he asked last week, hey, what do we get? And then in chapter 20, we see there will be rewards for Christians, which we're going to talk about. So, kind of a fun lesson. Grapes. Oh. Okay, so I had to pause there for a minute. Excuse me. The parable of the laborers and the laborers and the wages. So, I kind of wonder, sometimes when we labor, where you work, I don't know about where I work, you're not supposed to discuss what everybody makes. So here, the people go out in the morning, and they stand around, as it was in biblical times, and somebody comes along and hires them. They stand around available to be hired to work in the fields. And so they get hired daily. And they get paid a denarius. And you usually go out at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you say, hey, I'll pay you a denarius. And that's what this parable does. And then he goes back out at noon, 3 and 5 p.m. 5 p.m., by the way, is 1 hour before the end of the day in Jewish culture. And because Jews considered 6 p.m. the end of the day and the beginning of another day. And that's why we say Jesus was dead for 3 days. He died Friday evening, Saturday evening, and then Saturday evening started. He died on Friday, and then by Friday 6 p.m. started the second day, and then Saturday at 6 p.m. started the third day. So he rose on the third day. So, but anyway, and he only promises these people fair wages after he goes and finds more laborers. Well, the people who went out to work at 5 got paid the same as the person that hired on at 8. That does seem a little unfair, does it not? So the people that went to work at 8 in the morning thought and assumed they would get more, but they did not. Only got what was promised to them, a denarius, which was just enough in that day to buy food for the family for 1 day. But the landowner says, friend, I gave you what we agreed upon. Does that seem not fair to you? What is connected to this parable is grace. The farmer was extending grace. He gave what they did not deserve. He gave a lot of men that day more than what they deserved. And of course, grace does not always look fair. The early workers then were angry. So let's talk about grace. Grace can take us by surprise, I think. I've got to do this. Sometimes we say to ourselves, I've got to do this to have God like me and be righteous in his sight. And God says he will reward us. We're saved, though, by grace through faith. Do you ever promise God that you'll do differently and hopefully you have enough willpower to keep up the good work? Sometimes that doesn't work, though, does it? Don't be caught up in a draining legalistic contract and you make promises you cannot keep. And then you'll end up thinking, you'll wonder if you really have truly measured up by living by a law. Joy comes from grace. Think about that. I cannot please God unless I have faith. We can be angry when we see God blessing sometimes to those who do not deserve it. But I think that's just human nature, just like these people in this parable. But that's God's grace. And I've seen grace. I've seen grace in action to people that did not deserve it, people that were underprivileged and yet they were blessed. And I've been the recipient of grace. I've been the recipient, and I'm talking about the goodness of people. Through God's grace, He has people to bless you. I mean, I've seen grace. I've known of deaths in our family, and people would come rally around us. That's God's grace. And I've seen people that were in orphanages need help, and God bless that place. And and we can give to those places, and we can give to missionaries. That's grace. When we give to the missionary in the field who is desperately needing our help and that we take for granted. People, we can be an example of grace. Just remember, joy comes from grace. We're saved by grace through faith, something we don't deserve. What a blessing. I hope you all have a good week.